Hello all, Mr. Waples here. Welcome to our second video lecture for the American Industrialization unit. After this video, you should be able to define the terms social Darwinism, gospel of wealth, philanthropy, laissez-faire, division of labor, economy of scale, and the Sherman Antitrust Act. Furthermore, you should be able to identify which industries Carnegie, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, Ford, and Vanderbilt controlled. First, let's talk about some of the philosophies of the time period. From your science classes, you should be familiar with Charles Darwin, who believed in the theory of evolution, the idea that man evolved from apes, and also the idea that there is a process called natural selection by which only the strongest animals survive. During this time period, Darwin's theories were applied to society and businesses. Instead of saying animals, we're talking about businesses now. Only the strong businesses survive, and that the weak shall fail. They also believed, according to social Darwinism, that competition is a natural and necessary idea for progress, and that with competition comes jobs, goods, and wealth. Another theory of the time period is the gospel of wealth. This theory believed that people should be free to make as much money as they can. However, after they make it, they should give it away. This is called philanthropy, which means donating money to good causes. Now, many of the capitalists at this time period made loads and loads of money, but then gave much of it away to good causes as a way of making up for it. Another important theory of the time period was laissez-faire. Laissez-faire is the belief that government should not interfere with private business. Another way to put it is a hands-off approach toward businesses. Let's meet some of our entrepreneurs. First up is Andrew Carnegie, who was captain of the industry of steel. Carnegie was originally an immigrant who fell in some hard times in Ireland and ended up coming over to the United States, and he learned to apply the Bessemer process in the steel industry. He used the tactic of vertical consolidation, which is when you own every single phase of the process of your product, which for him was steel. He also believed in the gospel of wealth, in the sense that once you make money, you should give it back to the community. Next up is John D. Rockefeller, who was a captain of the oil industry. Rockefeller made his first money in the Civil War selling grain and meat. With that fortune, he formed the Standard Oil Company and used horizontal consolidation. Now, his company became so huge that by 1882, he controlled 90% of all oil refining. J.P. Morgan was a captain of the banking industry. He made loans to the United States government, controlled the banking industry, and bought up bankrupt railroads and insurance companies. Next up is Henry Ford, who developed the assembly line. Now, Henry Ford revolutionizes the car industry. He did not invent the assembly line, but he perfected it. He used two important concepts. First is the division of labor, and second is economy of scale. Let's take a closer look at those two concepts. First, division of labor is dividing labor so different tasks are performed by different people. It's easier to do the same thing over and over and over again instead of switching between two tasks. So he developed a system with assembly line where the work was brought to a person who would do the same precise movements all day long because they would become expert at that. And that would increase production and also efficiency. The next concept is economy of scale. The idea of economy of scale is that as production increases, the cost of each item produced decreases as well. If there's more of something, then it costs less. Lastly, we have Cornelius Vanderbilt, who was a tycoon of railroads. He made his first millions on steamboats, but he eventually consolidated railroads and made quite a fortune charging tolls and all kinds of fines and fees for using his railroads. Now, after a point, the government finally had to start stepping in and making rules against monopolies because they become too powerful. In particular, looking at the picture to the right, you see the Standard Oil Company, which is controlling everything from oil drills to boats to people to the government. And way, way in the back, you can see Congress as well. So this prompted the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, which was a response to government, by government to big business. Now, this outlawed any combination of companies that restrained interstate trade, which essentially means it outlawed monopolies or trusts. However, it was written so vaguely that it was rarely enforced by the federal government. And the only way for it to be enforced was for the court to decide what it actually meant. However, the court had a very laissez-faire perspective on business at this time period, and so therefore, this law was not enforced until Teddy Roosevelt became president. Let's look at some review questions. First of all, see if you can define each of the following terms: social Darwinism, gospel of wealth, philanthropy, laissez-faire, division of labor, economy of scale, and the Sherman Antitrust Act. Now, see if you can identify which industries Carnegie, Rockefeller, JP Morgan, and Ford, and Vanderbilt controlled. Thanks for listening.